All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to Friday night racing in Race Room. My name's Beanster. I'll be your host for the next hour and 20 minutes or so, and looking forward to a really interesting race tonight. It's Friday 28th of August 2020. And we are on race 3 of 4 in this series, which is a single car class series, which has made for some really interesting racing so far. Strategy and consistency playing a heavy part in the winning top table, as we'll go through in a minute. Halfway through at this point, we're halfway through the practice, and we're here at Spa-Francorchamps. Nestled in the beautifully treed hills of Stavelot in Belgium. Currently have 14 drivers in the quali session at the moment. We'll go through those in a second. But before we start, just a big shout out to Gabsy. I heard some news just before we started up that he's actually in hospital at the moment. He has an injury to his eye. So I know all of his friends in the RWB community would like to pass on best wishes. Get well soon. Hope everything's okay. Look forward to seeing you racing very, very soon, Gabsy. Right, so let's take a little look at this. We are currently in this is the third race, qualifying for the third race of a 4-race series. We've already been to Road America, and we've already been somewhere else. Remember to prepare better, Bennett. Suzuka, of course. So we've been to Suzuka and we've been to Road America. We're now in Spa-Francorchamps. So let's take a quick trip round Spa. Let's see if we can find somebody who's coming near to the start finish. No. Ooh, that's quite a gaggle, isn't it? Okay, let's jump on board with Vizar if he doesn't jump into the pits here. Extremely long circuit. This is actually a 7-kilometer, just over 4.3 mile circuit. So let's take a trip round with Vizar. Over the start-finish straight, quite a short sprint here into turn 1, which is La Source. Most of these corner names, anyone who's into motor racing will know very, very well. That's La Source, very tight in corner, good for a first corner collision if you get too interested. Belt downhill, flat out into the Eau Rouge Valley. So Eau Rouge is actually at the bottom here, as you can go as full as you dare, maybe a lift through this right-hander with this, and up into Radion as fast as you can get it. Keep the throttle pinned, because this run up the hill is a good 2 kilometers. You'll be flat out from the from the bottom of the Eau Rouge all the way through the Kemmel Straight. Brake very hard into corner number 7, which is Lecum, leading into this right section. Again, extremely important braking points there on the top of Kemmel Straight. Easy to get that undertaken there. As we come downhill, late braking again into Brussels, which is a U-turn effectively, and it's extend that corner as much as you can. Maybe a little dab of brake here or off the throttle into turn 11 and accelerate as hard as you can slightly downhill into Pouhon. Which in different car classes you take in very different ways. We can see 2 gears being taken there by Vizar as he comes through Pouhon as fast as he can exit. Use as much of the corner as you dare, and then brake hard into a right-left chicane, which is Campus. This is 13 into 14, and you can see quite a lot of runoff on the apexes and on the exits here to give cars as much opportunity to widen the curve. And then this is 15, Stavelot, which is the county in Belgium where we are. And then right in here, if you get it right, you can nearly take it flat out. You have to lift a little bit, but you can see actually we're in the right car here. So, 2 pink sectors for Vizar as he comes round Cours Paul Frère into Blanchiment, which is flat, maybe a roll-off, maybe not a roll-off, into this fast left-hander here, which goes up into the new bus stop chicane, which is corners 19, and then a very nasty turning left-hander, which is almost back on yourself, corner 20, and you've just done a lap of Spa-Francorchamps. That's 7 kilometers. Very, very long straights, very high elevation differences, some really fast corners, some medium fast corners. This weekend is actually the Grand Prix weekend at Spa, and one of the commentators was saying on the television today that many of the medium corners are now flat out fast corners. So the dynamic of the sport always changes, the cars always change. These cars are in the 90s, very stiff bodied, rear wheel drive, V6 480 horsepower machines, about 1100 kilograms, very, very fast, and very, very sticky and well balanced around the corners. So we are 4 minutes to go from practice. Visa has set our fastest time, which is, let's have a look, 1.14 second faster than Varley. Marco in third, Maral in fourth, Baba Ganoush fifth, Cos sixth, FX in 7th, Sean Wright in 8th, Charger in 9th, Burley in 10th, and not yet to make a qualifying time here is Ellis, British Dice, Pinpoint, and our championship leader Pedro Migueles. So maybe that's worth a little look to see what Pedro's up to. Oh, interesting. No time set, 3 minutes to go. He can get out and make his qualifying time if he wishes to. I'll keep an eye on him. So let's take a little look at the table. We have two championship races already completed. Pedro Migueles is leading the championship with 143 points over Madal with 116 points. So that's around 27 point difference between the two, which is not much given that 71 points or 70 points gets you the win, gets you a chance. There's plenty of points on for the next two races. But it's Pedro in first, Madal in second, and Charger is in third on 108 points, only 8 adrift of second. British only 3 points behind at 105, and Marco with 62 points. So a bit of a gap there, about 40 points or so gap between Marco in fifth and British in fourth. Vizar in 51th, he's in sixth. We've got Gabsy in seventh, Moolman equal in seventh. Dirk Gretschel, who had a great race last week and then got a little bit messed up towards the end. He's in 9th, Baba Ganoush in 10th, Cos in 11th, Alwyn in 12th, Dice in 12th equal, and also Crystal Beats equal, and then Ellis is in 12th. So there's 4 or 5 races at the bottom there, but they're mostly DNFs from the last couple of races. So what we're looking at then is Pedro has been extremely consistent. I've got here that he was first in first, but I can remember British finishing first in the first race, so that might be a steward's inquiry. So yeah, Pedro very consistent. First, Maral, third and third again, extremely consistent, and Charger fourth and fourth in the last 2 races, very consistent. British was second and 9th, and Marco didn't finish but got second. So you can see the consistency is really paying off in this championship so far. And if Charger were to complete every single race with 4 in 4th position, it'd make 216 points. Which would make that comfortably top 3, I'd say, given the point distribution so far. 1 minute 40 left of quali. What have I missed while I've been looking at my iPad? Varley looks like he's made good progress there. It's only 0.9 of a second gap on Vizar in first place, with Marco 1.2 off the leader and Madal 1.4 off the leader. And then there's a gap, 2.3 to Baba Ganoush, and still no sign of Pedro. So joined, connected, not qualifying. Interesting. These are also watching the scoreboards, no doubt, at the moment. So it's really the bigger gap here is Baba Ganoush, currently in 5th place, 2.2 seconds. So that's 0.8 second behind the 4th place man. That could mean that our top 4 drivers are kind of running away a little bit. Shane Ellis in 6th, Sean Wright in 7th, Charger in 8th, Cos in 9th, FX in 10th, Justin Burley 11, Jack Dice 12, British in 13th, and Pedro not moving from the pit in 14th. So 14 races for tonight's event. Make yourself comfortable. You've got 25 seconds to go get yourself a cup of tea, beer, or a glass of water. And there you go, there you see the qualifying. So Vizar indeed takes pole position. So Vizar in 6th place in the championship. His first race he got disconnected, which was a shame for him. Second race he was in 5th place. Looks to be strong for tonight's event. Let's not forget, I nearly did forget, that last week in Road America, Pedro was an extremely late joiner and managed to make it from the last place position all the way up to winning the race relatively comfortably. So maybe he's trying to create some kind of a trend here, you know, rock up late, turn up in his Learjet, arrive and drive, somebody puts him in his seat, he doesn't bother to qualify, and then he races from back to front. We'll see. That's a high risk strategy, let's be honest. Warm up time. So championship absentees, obviously Gabsy, as mentioned earlier. Dirk Gretschel, not connected tonight. Jan Mulman, also not connected tonight. But most of the others in the fight. A couple of people who have joined this week who've not made it in the first 2 series. FX is here. Welcome, FX. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So we're looking set. It's an hour-long race. That's the general format here. It's a 60-minute race. It's a mandatory pit stop. And each driver has to change at least 2 tyres, but your fuel strategy is up to you, how you want to run it. Last week we saw Dirk Gretschel run a really different strategy, qualifying and racing on his hard tyres, pushing himself into a very late pit stop, which was a really good strategy, nearly held out, but he got a little swamped towards the end of the race. Everyone looks to be on softs so far. Let's see, Chargers also setting trends over the last couple of weeks, qualifying reasonably middle of the pack, maybe lower middle of the pack, but then outperforming himself on race day. Clearly a Sunday man, not a Saturday man. So Charger currently in 8th. I'm going to keep an eye on him in the first couple of laps. It's normally very, very positively moving through the field in the early phases of the race. British will probably be a little bit disappointed being that far back down in the quali sessions given his last 2 finishes, but we'll see. And all cars ready to go. Very difficult to get clean in and out of La Source for this first corner. This is the 3rd race in the 4-race series, and we've got Vizar on the front with Phil Varley, Marco and Maral on the 2nd row. Looking like we're going to have a clean start, fingers crossed. Red lights. And they're off. Looks like a good start from Vizar. Also Varley going safe, but a great move up the middle there from Maral. Let's track forwards. Vizar makes the corner cleanly. Madal makes second place. That was a great move from the middle. You can see he got better tread and he got into the middle. Looking back up the field, everyone's pretty clean so far as we come down the hill into Eau Rouge. Single file here, very, very risky to make a move, especially at the start of the race with cold tyres. And everyone looks to be comfortably through there. Could be a run there for Marco. He looks like he may get a run on Varley up the hill. As you can see, many other battles that could ensue in this first couple of corners. Really great racing so far. Clean at the front. Vizar, Madal, Varley, front three drivers. Varley got dropped on the first corner by a great start from Madal, who started very well in the first race of this series as well. Back in the pack here, you can see Pedro Migueles is in 9th place, not 14th, but 9th place. That's not a surprise. And still tracking through here as British starts to put a press on as well. Yeah, expecting the British to make some moves in this race, given this first race finish. But it's tightly packed, and it all seems to be pretty safe. And it's, interesting at the back there, very, very tight at the back. 4 cars packed together. That's Justin Burley, Koz, Dice and Baba Ganoush. Baba Ganoush has dropped a few places from his starting position. He was in 5th place and he's now running at the back, so he must have had an error or made some mistake there. But the 4 back at the back here are having a right old ding-dong. As we see Pedro as now 7th place, starting to pressure on Sean Wright. So Pedro fancies himself for moving from the back to the front of the grid again. Vizar currently up front with 1 second on Madal, and Phil Varley in 3rd place with Marco in 4th and Charger in 5th. Good race at the front, but they're starting to space out a little bit, but they're definitely not spacing out at the back here, as we see FX holding off Justin Burley and behind British, with Baba Ganoush here putting a pressure. Oh, there's 3 wide there. 3 wide as they go up the hill. Fantastic corner. Moved into single file. It gets too tricky around that Blanchimont left-hander there as they come into the pit stop, the bus stop. Well, the pit stop, the bus stop. Oh, that looked like a very late braking manoeuvre there, and Justin Burley might have either got a shove or ran late and wide. I think there were some very late braking manoeuvres there. Baba Ganoush has hit the wall, so he's in a little bit of problems. He's going backwards. He's having a dreadful start to this race. He's now at the back, which is where he was when we found him, having qualified so much better up the field here, as we run down the hill here with FX putting a pressure on British. Very, very wide British there. Dust coming off the cars in front. Got to keep it flat through this is the only chance. These cars don't offer that much of a tow, but we'll see what that's really like in Spa, because this is probably one of the best tow sections on the track. Is it going to be too late for a move? Not too much defence going on there from British, but not going to throw one up the inside there either from FX, but great stuff. If we move up the field, it looks to me like Phil Varley is starting to put the pressure back on Madal, having had that place stolen straight off the line. Very clean manoeuvre as Madal moved up between the front two on the grid from the 2nd row and took 2nd place. And at the moment, Vizar checking them back, 1.26 ahead of Madal here, but not really pressing them too hard as we track Varley through and into Pouhon. So earlier battles seem to have settled, and you can see that gaggle behind there is Pedro Migueles, which is slightly behind Charger. Charger keeping himself as broad as he can, grabbing as much of the inside of the corner as well. So this is Pedro in 6th place, pressuring Charger, who is also pressuring Marco in front here. So a nice group here that we're building up. There's plenty of other racing going on here. It looks to me like Justin Burley has had a little bit of a drop there. He's 4 or 5 seconds behind Baba Ganoush, who's picked up a place and is catching up with Jag Dice. Madal slightly getting dropped at the front there by Vizar, who's now made 2 seconds, but still Phil Varley chasing. But we'll watch this one as we see Charger starting to put a press here onto Marco in front of us. Going defensive Marco, very late on the brakes from Pedro. He's put his car on the inside. Will he make it? Charger keeps himself in the position there, again going for the undercut, but no, I think Charger will get the run out here. But very clean racing. Extremely easy to hit each other into that chicane because you're braking from such a high speed, and it narrows incredibly after the first corner, and then it's so sharp, that right-hander. Charger defensive as must be his kind of neutral line that he takes for La Source into corner 1, as they drag race down the hill. But let's move further up here to see Varley, who continues to put pressure onto Madal. And let's take a little look back at, we go over Radion. Has he got the run here? Very, very good opportunity to pass here. It's just not pulling hard enough, is it, into that final sequence? He's gone for the late break. That's the late lunge, and it looks like he's made it stick. No problems there. I'm pretty sure Madal saw that coming and avoided any car-to-car contact. So great for Phil. He'll be very happy with that. He's recovered his second place. Now 3.3 seconds off of Visa. They've lost a little time when they did that early battling. But of course you're racing for position and you're racing at the front of the track there, so you've got to make your moves as much as you can. This is Charger with Michales behind him and Marco in front, continuing in this battle in 4th, 5th and 6th. Let's drop back into the field and watch FX. Looks like he's had a bit of a problem there. He's had an off, I think. I saw 2 wheels off the track there, and he's definitely dropping back. He's now back in 11th place. Can't see any damage to the car. But yeah, definitely dropping back as Charger continues to put pressure onto Marco in front of him. Let's take a look inside, keep our eyes on the mirror here because Pedro's right behind. This is one of those corners, really got to nail that if you're going to get the run up the hill. It looks like he handled that very well, but Pedro is starting to press behind, I can see. Certainly on the timing screens, they're gathering up these 3 as they run up the hill here around Blanchimont. Charger not taking any risks at this point in the race, but keeping himself very much in the rear view mirror of Marco in front. So we're 8 minutes into the race. That was the quickest 8 minutes of my life. So just running down the field, I can see that Koz, who's currently running in 10th position, is running on hard tyres. So the only driver out there who's taken possible long strategy for the first stint, remembering that this is a mandatory pit stop race. Everyone has to change at least 2 tyres. Fuel options are your own choice. And if I'm not kidding, Pedro is getting dropped by Charger and Marco as they engage in their own battle as Madal continues to pressure back on Phil Varley at the top there. But let's just run back because Charger looks like he had the opportunity there. He's put his nose in the gap. Marco gave him track space, but Charger didn't really want to put himself right in that position. But I think he's getting held back here. I think Charger's just slightly getting held back by Marco, but only marginally because they're not really getting dropped by the front by Phil Varley or Madal. And in fact, Visa is only a second ahead of Phil Varley. So while he made a 3-second gap earlier in the race, he seems to have dropped that off. So if we just take a quick look to see, running wide there as well as he goes into Pouhon. It looks to me like he might have had a bit of a bad lap there. 2:22, well, 0.8 per second, but that seems like that's enough in this race to gather it back. Jack Dice got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So Jack Dice currently 44 seconds behind at the back there, and a penalty to serve. Visa's lost his rhythm, really losing his rhythm here, and you can see noticeably Phil now catching him up. He's 0.4 of a second behind, and we all know what this is like. You get in a situation where you start to lose your rhythm. You see your guys catching you up behind, and then you have to concentrate so hard to retain or get back into that groove that you had before, re-find it. And this is when hours spent on the circuit help you, because your kind of natural movement, if you like, your muscle memory helps to inform how to get back into the safety zone, as we see Visa going into the pits. So it looks to me like Phil Varley is going to take the lead here. Visa must have had an issue with his car. I can't see any damage on the monitor here, but he must have had some issues, but hence the dropping of the time there. So Visa, great early start, starting to stretch his lead to 3 seconds. Now currently in the pits with Phil Varley inheriting the lead and Madal in second. And as you can see, that the race continues to burn behind here with Marco holding off now Pedro Meirelles. So Pedro has passed Charger, so the yellow AMG behind us is actually Pedro, and Charger has dropped back. So somewhere in that crossover, we had an opportunity to see it, and Mad Al also. This battle at the front really looks like it's going to continue. These two are absolutely pinned to each other lap times, corner for corner. But what a great race. These two at the front with only maybe a couple of seconds, 2.5 seconds on the gaggle behind in 3 places. And then you can see Shane Ellis is only a couple of seconds behind that group of 3 as well. Cos really starting to put pressure onto British now. So British has moved up to 8th from his qualifying. I can't see where he qualified. I don't think he qualified very well this evening. We're riding with Cos, starting to put some pressure onto British here. This is the fight for 8th place with FX in the mirrors there. You can see FX currently running in 10th place. So Visa has exited the pits in 12th position, and Pedro has made his way from the back of the track up to 4th, and he's currently putting a lot of pressure on Marco to take 3rd position if he can. So let's take a little look inside the car there as we relax into lap number 5. This is early on the accelerator there. You could hear how much Pedro was jumped onto that accelerator really early, and it's making an effect as we go up the hill. Difficult to make it stick into the first part of Blanchimont, but the second part, if you're brave enough, you can put a nose in the front here. But he's being cautious, took a little bit of speed off, and of course you lose all the momentum, then you've got no real drive to actually take you. It's sometimes better to actually catch on the second corner of Blanchimont and then carry that extra pace up into the chicane corners here. But great racing so far, very clean. I think Jag Dice may have retired, so we have one potential retirement here, which is Jag Dice. As we return, let's check back on Pedro Migueles. Sorry, but my scoreboard here is flashing red because there's so many battles going on around the field here. I can't speak quick enough, and I can't click my mouse fast enough either. Phil Varley leads, not quite a second ahead of Mad Al, who's keeping him in check. Nice wide down there. Pedro will get a slowdown penalty for that because he cut the corner off, as you could actually see it. He's got the run, but he has to do a slowdown penalty, so not sure how that's going to work. Wow, they're talking about pushing it to the extreme there. I think Pedro was one wheel on the grass there. I'm not sure how he's managed to serve his slowdown penalty, but that was as close as you could get to a fatal accident on the Kemmel Straight. And in front of them is Mad Al. So Phil Varley in front, Mad Al in second place. Pedro has now moved up to 3rd place, and Charger is in 4th, which means that we've got Shane Ellis currently running in 5th, with Sean Wright chasing him down. Marco there must have dropped off. I missed that. He must have had damage or some problem. So we saw them going up the Kemmel Straight. We saw them clanging doors as they tried to squeeze each other for space on the track. But what I missed was that I think Marco must have had a problem, because he's now dropped back to 7th position after that battle. It was a real shame because he was holding off Charger earlier, and that was looking like it was going to rattle on for quite some time. Behind Marco is Cos, a couple of seconds back, and then British continues to have his fun with FX. We'll stay with FX for a couple of corners and see if he can make a move maybe up the hill here. There seems to be the potential opportunities. Been pinned to the back of him now for a couple of laps. Good run. Again, when do you make the move? Looks like he's got his timing right, but maybe not. Actually didn't quite get enough pace, but here's the opportunity. Going to go defensive, so British goes defensive but brakes extremely late, and FX has no space, nowhere to go, and bumping through the sausages of the final chicane. So far our Visa has had to pit stop, and he's in 12th place, but remember this is an hour-long race, and effectively there's plenty of time to catch up in this race. So that's fighting at the front here between Phil Varley and Mad Al. Very, very respectful driving. They are really keeping each other honest there as we go through, and Mad Al has opted out and Varley has retaken the place. So this is really great racing at the front here. These two guys clearly showing each other mutual respect on the track, which is perfect, because one of the most important things if you're going to join RWB races at any time is that you follow the basic ethics of the club in this order of priority: race clean, race fair, but always race for position, and never in any other order. It's not win at all costs, it's not torpedoing up the inside, claiming the space, winning and damaging everybody else, or shoving it or sending it all the time. That's not the way we race. Originally it was a gentleman's sport, I believe, and RWB withhold those basic values: race clean, race fair, race for position, and we've seen that tonight. Charger now, as I said before the race, qualified this evening in 8th, currently running in 3rd position. Just a race man, just a race day man, Charger. Not really bothered to show up for qualifying. When it comes to wheel, he always seems to make really good progress in this first section. Went long on one of the races to see if he could change the strategy up a bit. It's very difficult with these cars to keep the pace up when you're running long, so actually it's not always the best tactic. Right now I might need some help. That's bad damage on Pedro Miguelez's car, so I have no idea how that happened. At some point on the track he's had big contact. You can see his headlights gone, and I actually have a message on here saying his engine damage is 27% engine damage as far as I can see on my chart here. So Pedro, who was looking like he was going to repeat his storming heroics from last week, is currently still in 5th, and we'll take a look at his lap times a little bit later, but let's return to this battle at the front between Phil Varley and Mad Al. Great stuff. Just looking down through the track here, I can see BGB looks like he might be taking an early pit stop here. I'll track that through. Let's return back to the top. So big changes at the front here. Phil Varley clearly still out there at the front. He's gapped by just over a second on Mad Al. They're both currently dropping Charger. He's now about 5 seconds behind them, who has Sean Wright beating down on him. So it's actually now Charger's opportunity to fight off Sean Wright as he comes up. This is the fight for 3rd position. This is a podium position battle early on in this race. We've just about done 19 minutes in the race, another 40 to go, so plenty of opportunities for changes of position here. But this is Charger in front of us in 3rd position, and we're driving with Sean Wright, who has had a great start to this race. He qualified in 7th, currently in 4th, so a lot of movers going upwards in the table here, including Pedro, who is probably a few dots on the mirror somewhere around here, because he's running behind Sean Wright by about 4 seconds. Shane Ellis is in 6th, and Marco is in 7th after having a stellar start to this race at the front there, but going backwards a little bit. I think Marco might have had another issue. Yeah, Marco has spun again, so maybe that's some damage that he's picked up from earlier in the race, and I think maybe just really struggling to find his way back into his rhythm. I expect that he will come in and pit very soon. What we have seen, we saw British taking his pit stop, and he has completed his pit stop early. He's exited in 12th position, but he's put on hard tyres, which makes sense. He's got 40 minutes left to go, so he's definitely going to run those as long as he can, so hopefully maintain some grip towards the end of the race rather than putting softs for 40 laps for 40 minutes. So that makes sense. So quite a lot of changes. You can see actually that Koz has made some great progress here. So Koz, who qualified in 9th, is now currently running in 7th as well. So a lot of people going upwards. Visa, one of those who has fallen backwards from pole position tonight, currently running in 11th. He hasn't officially made his pit stop yet, but he has had some issues. earlier in the race. So let's track in with Sean Wright as he continues to chase hard on the back of Charger. Only one retirement so far. We've lost Jack Dice, who made 4 laps. We're currently on lap 9. Sure that well, Spa is obviously one of the most well-respected and historical tracks on the Formula 1 circuit and on the endurance circuits as well, GT circuits included, in many different variations since the 1920s when it was first introduced as a circuit. I had the great pleasure a number of years ago to visit a Belgian friend of mine who actually lived inside the boundaries of the original circuit, so walking distance from this circuit. And on one nice Saturday afternoon we took a walk out of his back garden, went through the forests and climbed over a fence and illegally broke in to watch a race. So I expect the police to come and pick me up in the next 20 years for that. Just a really great circuit. It's got everything. It's got such big elevation changes, extremely fast sections, pinned for as long, many seconds flat out on the throttle. It's got these really technical lefts and rights which are pretty intricate, and some really interesting, obviously at the top at Radillon after Eau Rouge is a very famous corner, blindsided to see the left-hander apex as we go into La Source on corner 1 of the track, and it looks to me like these two are matching each other as we stand at the moment. So Sean Wright in 4th, chasing Charger in 3rd. We'll keep with this for a little while, because at the front I can see Mad Al is closing a little bit on Phil Varley. That'll be up the straight, but it looks like he's too far back here to make a move, and these two continue to extend their lead to 7.5 seconds over the two fighting in the background, who you can see. We will now rejoin. Charger placing himself in the middle of the circuit. Probably not necessarily at this point, but making the message clear to Sean behind, and Mad Al right on the back here as we go in. Let's take a little view from Mad Al's perspective here. So Vizar struggling to make progress out of his position back in 11th. This, remember, Vizar was our pole sitter for tonight. We've had one pit stop, which was British, who's come in and changed to hard tyres. Pedro Migueles, who did not qualify, he qualified at the back, has made his way all the way up to 5th, but had some kind of incident because he's got damage to his engine and he's currently running in 5th position. And they are our main, kind of championship battlers. So Pedro currently the championship leader. Just check that out. There's Mad Al in 2nd place in the championship. So currently driving with the 2nd place championship guy who's had 2 thirds, currently sitting in 2nd. So Mad Al really vying for winning this championship if Pedro can't recover this situation. I guess in the next minute or two, maybe 5 minutes or so, I expect we'll start to see some of the pit changes as we skip back into 4th position as Sean continues to press on the backside of Charger. In the background there you can see Pedro with a damaged car. Just watching that gap, because if Pedro stays in 5th position for the duration of this, he's effectively going to let's just check this out. Let's see whether Charger loses his position. It looks to me indeed like Sean made a great run up the hill. He's got the inside line and they're neck and neck. So really, wow, great defense there from Charger. late on the brakes, but of course because it's a right, left, right, that still rescinds that space, but no it doesn't. Charger's not giving this up. He's going to be going around the outside here as we go down to Brussels. Wow, that was really great defense from Charger. It looked completely like an open and shut case there for Sean to make that move, but they went wheel to wheel around that race. But what's happened is they've compromised their time, and as you can see in the background, Pedro has started to close that gap in. I think you have to be patient as well. If you're Sean here in this position, that was a really great opportunity to make that overtake. It didn't happen. It was a very, very solid defense from Charger, who continues to position himself defensively. Just got to be patient. There's no point in taking each other out. Keep it careful, but race hard. And he looks like he got a great drive there. Can he find the space? Again, Charger keeping left to try and keep the inside line here. These guys will probably be neck and neck through this next two section. I'm expecting Charger should be able to hold this attack off as well, unless Sean's got something up his sleeves. Goes to the undercut, but again, great positioning here from Charger. He'll keep himself in the defensive line into the rather nasty, but that was a great braking manoeuvre there. Has he done enough to go round and then claim the inside for the final corner, which was great work, and then the undercut there closed off. That's a blocking as we see Pedro, I think, in the background dropping off into the pit lane. Well, that was great because he broke really late round the chicanes, claimed the inside for turn 20, and then just made sure that there wasn't an undercut opportunity from Charger by just kind of blocking, apex blocking, which is absolutely legitimate and great racing. As Charger starts to put the pressure back on, this is great to see these two neck and neck here. So some really clean racing, and nothing's changing at the front here. Half a second adrift. Phil Varley and Mad Al continuing to go at it. As you can see on the screen there's been a number of pit changes, mostly between drivers who are mid to low. So really what we're looking at is the top 5 or 6 drivers here not making any changes yet. We're 32 minutes remaining in this race, so we're just about to reach the halfway mark. Notably, Pedro has pitted. We saw him pit earlier. Can't really fix the engines in this. It's only fuel and tyre changes. So it's Justin Burley, Vizar, British and Cos, and also Pedro, who have all had their pit changes, and Cos and British are on the hard tyres for this section. So there's a pair of drivers racing at the front here, and it looks to me like Charger has reclaimed third position from Sean Wright. So this continues to be a fantastic ding-dong between Sean Wright and Charger, and between Mad Al and Varley at the front there. And all the time that this has been going on, FX has been making really steady progress up the field. So from P10 quali, he's now in P6. We're looking at the battle for P3 as Mad Al starts to make pressure again on Phil Varley, but no dice into the chicane, and that's the moment that Mad Al chooses to take his pit. So that means that Phil has to do the hammer time thing for this lap, put in his quali time, and in the background I just saw Sean Wright, I think, jump into the pits as well. So as expected, these 4 racers at the front here are going to get shaken up. Phil Varley has stayed out, and Charger has stayed out. As we see, I think that was British, maybe. Nope. Exiting the pits. Not for position. So should be blue flagged here to allow Charger to move through the field. So Charger now currently running second with Mad Al and Sean Wright going into the pits. So Mad Al now exits. So Mad Al looks like he's going to exit there ahead of FX. Which will mean that Mad Al has done his pit stop and he has returned to 4th position in the race. And the question is, when is Phil going to come? Is Phil going to make sure that he doesn't lose this undercut, or is Phil going to stay out for another lap? So interested to see Phil's times, or his sector times for this lap. How much is he putting the medal down, if you like? Current lap 36.9, 39.6, bit of dyslexia there. Not actually hitting his fastest lap time here. So if he is planning to pit this lap, he's not really taken much advantage of it in this out lap. In fact, maybe putting a little too much pressure on himself as he goes into the section there. Looks like Pedro will start to make a move here on Baba Ganoush. So Baba Ganoush has not pitted yet, but Pedro has, and he slides up the inside, no quarrels there. So Pedro makes 6th place, which will be vital points for his championship, given that he's won the first 2 races. This might give him a comfortable seat for the championship if he can hold 5th or 6th position, I guess, in this race. So Phil Varley is now pitting. As suspected, he's taken 1 lap out, and then we will watch him exit to see whether he's maintained his lead over Mad Al. We have seen early in the championship, I think it was Vizar who had some issues with the pit change and dropped to around 30 seconds on the other cars because of a not such a great pit switch over. Charger has remained out, as is his thing to go long. So Charger very comfortable to go a little bit longer on the tyres here. We're now 28 minutes going, so it's only just over halfway. He's probably got another 3 or 4 laps before he can make his choice. And Shane Ellis also pitting. So what we're really looking for is to see whether Phil Varley is going to exit ahead of Mad Al, as Mad Al comes around the final corner. It looks to me like Mad Al's made the move there, and Phil drops in behind him. So great stuff for Mad Al, but Charger is 23 seconds up the field. Given that the gap between these 2 guys and Charger and Sean Wright was about 4 seconds, I'd be surprised if Charger can exit ahead of these 2 racers. That would be a hell of a undercut if he was, but the loser out of that pit switch over was Varley, because Mad Al's made a great exit. He's got himself a good couple of seconds here on Phil, so he needs to really concentrate, make these first few laps on the nice new tyres really work for him, as Phil will continue to try and hunt him back down. Pedro, meanwhile, is in 4th position, mainly because he has, I think, picked up the position from Sean. So has Sean not pitted? No, Sean is also running long here, as the Baba Ganoush picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Tut, tut, tut. So something must have happened here with Sean Wright, because he's currently running in 5th, hasn't made a pit stop, and behind Pedro Migueles. Doesn't sound like the fastest running motor car at the moment. As we watch Charger, there you go. Charger jumps into the pit as soon as he can. Careful not to speed. Might have lost a couple of seconds there. I think the speed limiter might be around the corner, might not be. I'm expecting Mad Al here, who has kept his gap on Phil Varley at 2.7 seconds, to slide through here and take 1st position. So indeed these 2, although they have swapped positions, will remain in 1st and 2nd. And of note, there's Pedro Migueles behind them in 3rd position with a damaged car, having raced from the back of the circuit. So Pedro is still making a very, very strong case for why he should win this championship right now. Yeah, I'm really curious to know why Sean hasn't made a pit stop but is still behind. He must have had some problem here. At least it's not registering that he's made a pit stop, and he's the only one that hasn't, so I'm not sure if he'll receive a penalty if it doesn't register that he actually makes this pit stop. So let's take a little stock here. We're 24 minutes left of the race. Mad Al in first, 2 seconds from Phil Varley. That is a position swap over the earlier battle. Pedro Migueles at the back of the grid from Quali has come through to third with some incidents along the route by the look of it. Sean Wright, who was fighting in third and fourth, remains fighting in third and fourth, but on my system he has not yet taken his pit stop, the only driver on the track to not take it. I've got Charger in fifth, who was at some point fighting in first, second, third place. He's been in the top 3 or 4 for the majority of the first half of this race. Currently in fifth on his new set of tyres, and I'm sure he will inherit back the place from Sean Wright, who's only 15 seconds up the field from him, having not made a pit stop. Got Shane Ellis here in 6th position with FX, who has been steadily going up through the field here. Vizar, he's our pole sitter for tonight's race, had some early issues, took an extremely early pit stop, and has come out and has been not making the breakneck recovery that I think we were expecting Vizar to make here, but he has been working his way through the field, so he's come back to 8th. We have Koz here in 9th. He seems to be having a fairly safe race. No troubles for Koz, with Marco behind him, who was battling at the pointy end of the track for some time, but had a couple of incidents, maybe just lost his rhythm, probably damaged the car somewhat. And British, who was after our first race in this series, was our championship leader, struggling to get himself up into the top half of the track. Baba Ganoush had a great qualifier, putting his car on 5th, but dropped back after only a few start of the race, I should say. And Justin Burley here in 13th place, who seems to be having a little bit of a quiet race here. Jack Dice is our one and only retiree. Definitely problems for Charger. So Charger now dropping back in 8th position. That's a shame. He was really fighting hard at the front of the field there for some time, and probably had an off or a little bit of a mistake. Can't see any noticeable damage on the car. Do a quick check here to see how his lap times have gone. Yeah, ignore the 240, so maybe that's not telling me the truth then. So he has had his pit stop. He's in 8th, but there you see it, a 3 minute and 17 lap after his 240. Really lost a lot of time in those last 2 laps, one of which will be the pit changeover lap. As usual with these hour-long races, cars start to spread out a little bit, so we've got no very close on-track battles at the moment, but it's really credit to Mad Al, who, if you remember right back at the start of the race, he was on the 2nd row of the grid and managed to squeeze it up the inside into La Source to take 2nd place. So he made his intentions clear right from the start, only following Vizar down into Eau Rouge for the first time. And he has rightfully claimed his position at the front of this track so far, with Vizar starting to get back into his rhythm. So now he's found himself in 7th place, having just passed Charger and starting to move up through the track. So Vizar had connection problems on the first race, but made 5th place and 51 points in the 2nd race as he starts to close in hard here on FX. In front of him, he's going to go round the outside. We'll see whether this move sticks. Very difficult, but he's done a great job of that, and you could see how much space FX gave him. He cut right across the corner in order to make sure they didn't have any on-track collisions. So just great discipline. It's very easy to think to yourself, now I'll keep my car where I want to keep my car, and if you hit me, you hit me. But it's pointless if you're going to spend an hour racing to give it up on a silly mistake. So great racing there by FX, who succeeds the place, but makes it as difficult as he can for Visa to make it through. So FX now currently running in 7th and Visa in 6th. So what we've settled into now, with only 19 minutes left of this race to go, is the front 3 runners, Madal, Phil Varley and Pedro Mijeles. Well, these two have been chasing each other for most of the race, either silver car in the front or blue car in the front. We've seen many combinations of that, but what we haven't yet seen is when the yellow car behind them gets into the mix. And Pedro's pace is good. I'm tracking him at 4 seconds behind at the moment. So let's just take a quick look at some of their times to see where their averages are higher and the gap is closing. So if we take a look at Madal's last few laps here, very steadily hitting the 2:23s in these last 3. So he's picked up the pace in this race. Early pace was steady in the 24s, some 25s. Since his pit changeover, he's been hitting 23 solidly and going faster, I'd argue, most of the time here. So Madal really putting the metal down, but that's not putting Phil Varley off. Phil, very, very similar type of times here, you can see, but Phil has hit a 2:22, which is noteworthy. Best laps so far, let me just check through here. Fastest lap times, we have a 2:21.889, which is from Visa, followed by a 2:22.348, which is Pedro. So that's quite a big gap there of about 0.4, 0.5 of a second, and then just behind that is Phil Varley in 3rd on the fastest lap of 2:22.5. So Phil is has set a faster lap time here than Madal in front, but I guess the important thing to see here is the 2:22s that are constantly getting put in by Pedro. So despite the damage that he's picked up to his car, Pedro is clearly the faster man on the track at the moment, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2:22s in the bank, and the gap is at 4 seconds, and my guess is that he's going to keep eking into that over the next 17 minutes. Given that a lap time here is 2:22, that gives roughly 6-7 laps remaining in this race. So he's got to be making a second a lap, Pedro has, in order to pick up this battle in front between Phil and Madal. And it could happen because, of course, if these two guys get tangled up or they start to compromise each other's times, he does have the opportunity to inherit even more. But basically we're looking at 1, 2, 3 on the grid here at the moment. The gap between 3rd and 4th is considerable at 25 seconds, with Sean Wright, who, as the screen shows, doesn't appear to have had a pit stop yet. Shane Ellis is in 5th. Bizarre has moved into 6th. He's ping-ponged up and down the table tonight, and FX in 7th. Looks like he might be settling somewhere in 7th here. Charger in 8th, disappointing for him, having been right at the front end of the track for quite a lot of the race so far. Cos, good progress through. Cos qualified in 9th here, currently in 9th, so he's keeping a very nice, strong position here. Good points to be made there. Marco, who was fast at the start of the race but had some issues, lost his rhythm somehow, or maybe he's damaged his car, dropped back. He was looking comfortable in 3rd, 4th position. Great battles. Baba Ganoush, again, he's one of the losers for tonight's race. And as I go through here, Justin Burley is in 12th, and it looks to me like British, who was currently sitting in 4th in the championship, has retired. So that's me breaking news. So I guess you're thinking to yourself when you're in Phil's seat here, you've had the lead, been in front of Madal quite a bit during this race, has set a faster lap than Madal up until this point. You'd be confident that you could make a move here got to put some pressure on, got to get closer, which means making less and less mistakes in order to keep applying the pressure. But there's plenty of time yet. There's still 14 minutes. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't look in your mirrors. Don't worry about Pedro. Somebody else's problem. Although what was a 4-second gap is now 3.5 seconds. That could put him in the mix. Shane Ellis will be happy with this. P6 quali up to P4 in the race as we continue to sit on the shoulder of Phil Varley to see whether he can make any gains here on Madal in front here. Madal sitting second in the table in the championship with 2 third positions, 258 points, making 116 in his championship challenge. And as it stands, this would be around about 12-point gain, so he would close the gap on the championship to Pedro, but Pedro would maintain the championship lead if he was to finish in third as it currently stands. Gap at 3 seconds, 2.7 seconds of course into the chicane there. So Charger in 7th moved up their place, and it looks to me like FX is moving up again, reclaiming a 6th position that he held earlier in the race. So Charger trying to chase that position back, but FX has moved up to 6th place here from a quali in 10th. That's a 4-place shift upwards, which is good for him, but Charger looks to be putting the pressure on, or at least continuing to put the pressure on. Gap still 1 second to the front, but 2.5 seconds back, or 2.4 seconds, is Pedro Migueles. So Pedro continuing to put this late charge on. He has 12.5 minutes or thereabouts to get himself into sniffing distance of these 2 guys in the front, and you've got to feel he's got a chance here, because if you can get on the back of them, he can use that extra pressure to make the drivers in front make mistakes, and it's very easy when you can see the guys behind you are catching you to stop driving your own race and start driving their race for them. So if he can get himself into a slingshot position here, offer the threat of an overtake, he'll probably do enough to put one, maybe both of them off. So you can't write Pedro off in this position. His lap times are consistently faster than the 2 guys in front. But the question is, does he have enough time? Looks to me like he might just have had that. My bad mathematics can be thrown in the bin from earlier. And it looks distinctly like we've lost another driver. So joining Jack Dyson, British, in the retirements is Sean Wright, which is a shame. He was driving so well for us earlier in this session. He'll be really disappointed with that outcome. Shame there for Sean. And we're looking at a very tight battle here for Phil Varley, who has really caught up with Madal into that sequence. Excuse me. Back marker moving out of the way there, which is good. But it's definitely all setting up here nicely for Pedro, with 11 minutes left of the race. Let's slip back here as we can see Marco starting to make a little charge onto the back of Cos. See there, Cos not quite as brave as Marco was through that fast hand, but does a great job of putting himself in the defensive position. And unlike the move earlier, Marco can't do the switch, but he's got a good drive there. Maybe lost a little traction on the exit. Again, we can expect to see Cos holding position here and keeping it safe. Sorry, I missed that one. bad clicking, bad clicking. And the fight intensifies at the front because Pedro now, as you can see, is noticeably quicker, only 1 second off the back of this group here as we watch Varley continue to apply pressure here. I think we have to follow this race to the end here as Pedro gets a bit twitchy on the exit there, and into Stabilo. Gonna run wide, holds it inside. Good looking racing. Varley's got himself in a bit of a situation now because he's going to compromise himself as he has to in order to defend Pedro running the inside line. That means that gives Mad Al a chance to extend his lead because Mad Al doesn't have to concentrate on this battle. Mad Al, currently sitting in first position here, can just drive his own race, let these two guys squabble for second place. Phil has to somehow in this sandwich defend Pedro from behind but attack Mad Al at the same point in time, which is extremely difficult to achieve as we look back from the wing of our current race leader Mad Al, who made his way up from third position to first after a good early overtake and then some great moves over the pit exchange, which gave him the lead over Varley actually, as he did a better pit crossover and he kicked over some better lap times. Pedro looks like he is not going to be able to make a move here on Phil behind, and Mad Al holds this off. So 8 minutes, that's still a lot of racing to go through here. I'm expecting this may not be the final order for this race, as we see Phil Varley cutting as much of that corner off as he could to compress these three together. And some very side sliding there from Pedro as he tries to find some spaces on the grid here. It seems to me like in the technical sections here, the two guys behind, Phil Varley and Pedro, have got more confidence than Mad, or maybe he's just really keeping himself nice and cautious as Pedro throws one up the inside there. That is absolutely door to door, and he seems to have made it stick, so took the half opportunity that he could, put his car on the inside, and Phil did very well not to get completely sideswiped out of the racetrack there. So the question is how is this going to hang as we go in car with Phil Varley at the back of these three, and you can noticeably see the behavior of Pedro's car is very much taking a lot of turning angle into the corners. The car is side slipping and he's gathering it mid corner, so clearly a technique he's used to or happy with. And we've got a bit of a drag or a bit of a draft up the hill here as Phil takes his chance. If he can time it right, he might be able to make a move after this left-hander here on the top of Francorchamps. All of them running a little ride of track extent there. Nothing to be had here, but definitely show your face. Very, very late on the brake there for Pedro. Oh, there could have been contact, I couldn't tell. Little flash of brake lights in front as these three compress into that and out of the final chicane. So the battle continues to rage at the front here, and I can see that Charger has made his way up to 6th place, so fighting back in this race, and has overtaken FX, who's in 7th. Vizar has recovered himself into 5th position, so from a great early start in 1st position to the bottom of the grid effectively after a very early pit stop, he's now claiming it back as we continue to follow this battle at the front of the track here, with Mad Al holding off Pedro Migueles, who's holding off Phil Varley. Again, let's track it from the back of Mad Al's wing as we go through this slightly more technical section. Out of Lecum down to Bruxelles. And you can see how much pace Pedro can take through into that corner, into Bruxelles, and then out into this right-hander on turn 11. And then racing down the hill to Pouhon, which is the place where he made the move last lap. I'm not sure whether he's got a taste for it now, but yeah, definitely fancies himself into that corner. signalling his intent for one of the final laps. We have 5 minutes to go of this race, and it's really coming to a head here with these three absolutely packed together. No more than half a second between the three of them. It's anyone's game in this final 2 laps of the race. As you see in the back there, Phil Varley covering as much of the track as he possibly can to get a sniff and not get lost on this. The tail whips around out the back of Pedro's car. He could have handling issues as well. Maybe he just likes to go rally style around Spa, but it's not affecting his traction so much as we spread slightly up the hill as we pull up through Blanchimont and the Cours Paul Frère. Apologies for everybody else in the race, but this is too gripping at the front here. We have a 4th retirement. Unfortunately, Justin Burley has retired. He made 19 laps. These guys are on 23, so apologies for missing that one. But 4 retirees: Jack Dice, British, Sean Wright, and Justin Burley no longer racing. As we're tracking cars 1, 2 and 3, and we're sitting on car 1. Let's go and take a look in the driver's seat from Phil Varley's position, as it looked to me like Madal went very wide in that exit, giving Pedro a great opportunity here. Is he going to take it? Risky opportunity going down into Eau Rouge. Not really any space for a passing move, so probably best to just keep it as close as you can under the draft and then get as best an exit as you can. Looks like he's going to struggle to get that run. That was really exceptional cornering there from Madal, who had a lot of pressure to make that stick through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, and did a fantastic job of doing so. You'll see in your mirror here, Phil Varley 0.3 of a second behind the two of them. So this is not over yet, with 3 minutes and 19 left of this race, meaning that we will finish this lap and one more lap of this race, which means there's a good 28 corners. And that's very late braking there from Pedro. I think, he sniffed his opportunity, but that would have been contact, so he held off. Great defence work from Madal at the front, who might be losing his rhythm slightly under this amount of pressure. Fantastic car control here from Pedro, who seems to be able to manage situations in the corner. This looks like a much faster corner for Pedro than the other drivers, maybe where he's making up a bit more of his time. But nothing's flustering Madal. He seems to be driving on the absolute edge, but he's not coming off. He's not making any big mistakes here, and neither is Phil Varley in the mirror there. If we flip back, we'll see how tightly packed these three are. So the fight for first, second and third rages, and to me that looked like Pedro had a really good opportunity there to get a run on Madal. He does have the draft up this hill by the look of it. Great racing. Shane Ellis is 35 seconds behind these three, so it's really just a race between the front three at the moment. He's going to put it up the inside, but he can't make it cover, and that's it. Madal needs to just cover that left-hander, slow them down, and then get a good solid corner out himself. He'll go defensive into La Source as we watch the three of them now packing into this first corner. That looks like a possible opportunity there. He's put his car into the space and he's forced it out wide, and it looks to me like Pedro may well have made that move stick. He cut an earlier line. He dived for the apex as quickly as he could, and he made it stick. Madal run wide, but not going to give this up. And now the question is, can he hold this with the same level of composure he did in the last lap, with Varley all over the back of him? So there was some sense of inevitability that Pedro was going to make this move in the final lap. But even still, the race isn't over. Look at the toe. Phil starting to put pressure on the back as well. Pedro's lost his braking point, run too wide there, got him's corner. He's got to dive up the inside here. He's going to put it. Oh, he doesn't. He brakes before. That was an opportunity possibly, but it was marginal. Phil Varley still sniffing around behind here. This is fabulous racing. As we sit in the seat next to Phil, who looks like he might go on the inside there, but they're being very careful. Pedro's got a chance now to just get himself half a second ahead of these two and out of the danger zone. It looks to me like he's going to do that now. So all credit to Pedro. Very, very good racing, putting pressure on the drivers but not actually making any contact, and credit to these guys as well, who have resisted the temptation to simply slam the door at every opportunity. It's just great to see this quality of racing. Fantastic work, guys. Phil Varley currently in third. Between him and Madal, they dominated the first two positions for most of this race, and you fancy that this still isn't over. It's the last lap of the race, but we've still got a handful of corners left here, and Phil may think he has a chance, but he's really got to get this corner right if he's going to get the run up the hill. That's the last chance he's got. They're all going to go for it, and I can't see that he's going to get enough of a tow here. Let's take a look back at him from Madal's car. So as we go into the final corners here, you see these three have had such a fantastic race at the front, but it looks to me like Pedro, barring any weird mistakes here, Madal brakes as late as he can, really not giving up that race as the three of them pass with less than 0.3 of a second between the three of them. Could it get any more entertaining than that? Pedro Migueles wins over Madal, over Phil Varley, and we're running back through the track here to see Shane Ellis, who's in 4th place, and Vizar, I think I just saw, could have been the guy who was in the kitty litter there. So we're following Shane Ellis, who is running 4th, 35 seconds adrift of the front three racers, and 15 seconds ahead of Vizar in 5th place. I'm just going to check back here because FX is all over the back of Charger, and these two are going to go ding-dang for it as well into the last corners. Charger running very wide there to cover himself for this final corner, and FX really putting the press on here. But let's just check back to make sure we see the cars going over. This is Vizar, so Shane Ellis did make 4th, Vizar in 5th, and the and the two guys behind there, Charger and FX, battling it to the very end. So we look at Marco, who had a very mixed race, fast at the start, not so fast towards the end, some issues possibly, in 8th position, and some 18 seconds behind is Koz, and that's the position that Koz actually qualified in tonight. So he's had a very solid race, keeping his points as max as he could. Further down the field is our final runner for tonight, who is Baba Ganoush. So thanks for that, Koz. Baba Ganoush is going to pass the line in 10th position with 4 retirements: Justin Burley, Sean Wright, BGB British, and Jag Dice. So congratulations to our podium 3. Pedro Migueles in 1st place, gave us a very entertaining race, coming from the back of the grid again to win. And Madal finished in 2nd place with Varley in 3rd. Fantastic racing from the guys there, I have to say. Really, really enjoyed it tonight. That keeps Pedro at the top of the championship table. Looks to me like it keeps Madal in 2nd position. And possibly, yeah, I think Charger will retain his 3rd place as well. So Phil will move up the table, but top 3 unchanged, I think, in the championship after this. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm going to go downstairs, put my feet up on the sofa and have a pint of beer in order to come back down. So great racing again, as we get every week from the RWB boys and girls. Well done, everyone. We have one more race, which is at Dubai Autodrome, which is next Friday. So thanks for joining us tonight. And if you're feeling a bit sad and lonely in the week and fancy a little race on your own, don't do that. Come and race with RWB. Cheers.